Welcome to Porch Play Chats, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately called IPA USA. IPA USA is a USA affiliate of the International Play Association, and as part of our efforts to promote play, we've introduced these Porch Play Chats. These are conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. You can learn all about the Porch Play Chats, and by the end of March of 2023, there'll be over 150 that are free to you to explore on a topic that might be interesting to you. And you can find those by going to our website at ipausa.org. Up in that top right-hand corner is the link to our YouTube channel, so you can subscribe to that. You can be a friend on our Facebook page, and the link is up there for you. And you can follow us on Instagram. And magically, every Monday morning, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm the president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch today is Sharon Jackson. Sharon, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much.
We're so glad you're with us. So Sharon is in her 5th year of teaching Intro to Teaching and Educating Young Children at a community college where students routinely transfer to a 4-year, mine too. She's a trainer and consultant and the owner and operator of Curating Play. And I'll put all of her contact information in the show script that's in YouTube. She's retired from a 23-year career in public school, early education with Head Start and pre-K, and the prior 30 years in faith-based military and Montessori settings. Oh my goodness, Sharon, we're so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Today she's talking about building advocacy for play among pre-service teachers, which is, deep in my heart.
Right.
And how can we encourage new teachers to understand and comfortably use play-based approaches in public school classrooms? OMG, do we need to talk?
Yeah, it is such a pleasure to be here, Deb. Thank you so much for having me. And basically, like you said, I just need a conversation about this because I don't have a lot of others to bounce ideas off of, because especially in a 4-year university, even though play is encouraged by some of the instructors, they're so content driven and they're so linked into the teaching practices that sometimes play never even comes up, and which actually should be the #1 teaching practice, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I know that Deb, you and I've had a conversation earlier about playing with our students, and you've been a real encouragement to me to do that. I've just in my brain revised all my lesson plans for the rest of the spring semester. But I'm just thinking what we need to do. And of course, everyone has their own agency. Everyone has their own opportunity to make a decision. But I feel like if they're not going to get it anywhere else, then that's incumbent upon me as a true believer to spread that word. But the thing I also want to do is not just spread the importance of play, because I feel like that's a pretty easy sell sometimes, especially to younger people. But what I want to do is build their capacity for advocating. They're going to be the new kid on the block when they walk in, and there's going to be set routines, and this is how we do this, and this is how we do that. And they'll have a mentor that, is hopefully experienced and practiced and is going to guide them along the way that their school's path. But if their school's path doesn't include what you and I believe to be appropriate practice for young children, and not even just so young, as you just shared with me about a school that goes all the way up with a play-based environment, then what are we going to do? I don't want them to be frustrated, and I don't want them to be discouraged about the truth of play. But on the other hand, I want them to be strong and have ownership of several different ways that they can spread the word, or small steps that they can take that people will see as valuable and appropriate.
Oh, and I think that is, you need to write a book about this, because the importance, because every time in the classroom when I talk about the importance of play with my students, but what about the principal who says, I have to follow this curriculum?
Mhm.
And, you know, I always say you can follow that curriculum through play if you have to.
Right.
But then I tell the story when I was a kindergarten teacher and the principal brought me the big, you know, shrink wrapped curriculum book.
Yeah.
I just took it and put it in the back of my teacher closet.
Yeah.
So
And
I
did
just,
anyone ever ask you about it again? Probably
he,
not.
2 years later, he came in, he said, I have to talk to you. And I was like, oh God, so much trouble. Why do all the first grade teachers want your children?
Mhm.
And I said, what do you mean? He said, they always say, we want Lawrence's kids. Give me Lawrence's kids. And I'm like, so what are you doing? You have to promise not to be mad, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I went over and got the shrink wrap book and brought it over and put it on the table. He said, you never? Oh, I said, you promise not to be mad. And I said, you know, the people who wrote this don't know my kids, don't know
Right.
their interest, don't know their backgrounds, don't know their culture. It's
Yeah.
not appropriate for my kids. And so I don't open it.
Yeah.
And you know, so sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to just put it in the back of the closet.
Yeah. I
Do
had
what
a very similar experience in my early kindergarten years where I was the hire on after Labor Day because there were too many children, which
uh,
was true. I was pleased, but I was pretty much put into an empty room because they didn't have the stuff. So the kindergarten teacher, the only other one next door, gave me all of her blocks because she didn't need those. So I happily took them all and went to garage sales, and my daddy helped me build things and all that kind of stuff to outfit learning centers in the classroom and just to allow them to play. And fortunately, I didn't even have a curriculum at the time to hide in a teacher closet. And I did get to do pretty much what I learned to do from a couple of other wonderful mentors that lived in another town. So
mhm.
yeah, it happens. And I believe that it happened to you and I believe it happens today too.
Yeah. Yes, I
The whole
agree.
idea of getting them ready for the test, getting them ready for the next step. And one thing I have said to I call them my children, said to my students is we owe it to the children in front of us to allow them to be who they are when
Mhm.
they are. We don't
Yes.
spend our whole 4-year-old year getting ready to be 5. We
No.
spend it being the best 4-year-old we can be. And
Mhm.
for us as adults, facilitating that process.
Mhm.
So my mantra right now.
I love that mantra. And I do think the pressure that teachers experience makes us need to put more advocacy tools in their tool belts,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
If if we have advocacy tools that they can reach for and they have the research behind it,
Mhm.
then they can begin to dispel some of these misperceptions about play with
Right.
parents who I think would be our strongest advocates.
I would
Because
hope so. I would hope so. On our site curating play, we offer that as a, join us in this effort. Send us your email and we'll send you how to help parents understand play.
Mhm.
It's not all inclusive by any means, but it's just an encouragement to help parents who may and because I've worked in childcare too, everybody in childcare has had the parent that came in and said, my child is ready to learn to read. He's 2 and he
Uh,
can sing the ABC song. So when are you going to teach him to read?
yeah.
Those kind of things. So
Oh my goodness. I had that many times as a director. Yeah. They'd walk in, he's gifted. And I and in my head,
absolutely he is.
all 8 of my grandchildren are gifted.
Mhm.
Right. But
For sure.
and I would say, okay, so tell me what he's doing. And and they would say he knows all of his ABCs. And I said, are you singing the ABC song with him a lot? Yes. That is wonderful because he's memorizing that song, and that is a great way for him to grow and develop. I said, here we wait until they demonstrate to us that they understand what a letter looks like. And that sometimes doesn't happen until 4. But in this program, here's how we get them ready
ready
to read. And it's all through, these dispositions of learning. So it becomes a tool in their tool belt if they have something that they can demonstrate, right?
Yes.
That here's the basis. This research is the basis for my decisions and what I do in my classroom.
Exactly. And that's why my students are required by the syllabus that I didn't write, but it's not a bad one, but the syllabus requires them to do a portfolio throughout this class. And so my goal is that it doesn't just have unit tests and things like that in it, in fact, I have them do a folder called teacher supports. And that's where I pour these things, put this in your folder, you may need it later. If nothing more, I try to encourage them that it will help them in their last 2 years. You'll be able to use this in this class. You'll be able to use this when you talk about this. But one of the things that I have in it is Vygotsky. What does he believe? How does it influence play? Montessori, what does she believe? How does it influence play? So I have given them at least that small research-based opportunity to share that with others as they go forward.
And I think once they have these playful experiences in the classroom, they get it, right? But it's the hesitancy of being afraid to get in trouble, which I think goes back to our lack of risk taking when they were little, right? That they're, all of these things seem to be combining together. The lack, some of the college students are young, right? So they're 18, 19, 20. Some of my college students are older, 50, 55.
Yeah, coming
60,
back. Yeah.
right? Which is why I love community college, because you have
for sure.
range of experience and age in the classroom, and they learn so much from each other, going back to Vygotsky. But in some cases, I think, I tell the students who are younger, you are the victims of the standardized testing movement.
Absolutely.
And so your experiences in school were different than my experiences. And so I need to put that up right up front. And so, but that doesn't mean that you can't revisit other ways of doing education. And so, then getting them in touch with some playful memory that they have and helping them have those fond memories begins to help them understand why play is so important in children's lives.
And just why do they even have the memory? There's something special about it. What is that? Was it the emotional appeal? Was it the fun that they had? What was it, who they were doing it with? All those reasons. Why is it a special memory?
Yes, well, all those things really help them begin to go, oh yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I did it over and over and over again. And then, aligning that with dispositions of learning, both positive and negative. Then we talk about the ones that they had in their classroom as students and what they would have rather have had decide. And they begin to start, that whole experience of reliving what their own experiences were helps them then see that there's another way
for sure.
of approaching what we do with kids in the classroom. And so I think those tools are helpful. I think the tools that you talked about are helpful. And if we can and risk-taking is also helpful.
Yes, and that was such a big thread at the IPA conference last summer in San Antonio. It was a good one too. And I have grandchildren living with me right now, just for a brief period, a 5-year-old and a 15-month-old. And it number one, it's hugely fun, but number two, it is interesting to watch myself not do what I think I should do. Be careful. What am I doing? Why am I saying that? He doesn't need to be careful. He needs to figure it out.
That's
So,
right.
I need to practice what I preach. I need to pay more attention when I am with those children and they're outside in the backyard or whatever they're doing. Of course, you can imagine actually he's almost 16 months old now, and climbing is a very new sport for him. And
Oh, absolutely.
we just need to go with that and provide some free safe places for it to happen, and then see what happens next. But sometimes we
Exactly.
forget to pull into our personal lives exactly what we think is so important.
Oh, as Nana, oh my goodness, we would be at the playground, and Reagan, who turned 12 yesterday, when Reagan was like 2 or 3, she was so adventurous on playground equipment. And I was like hyperventilating, and I would have to say to myself, stand back,
Let her do it.
trust her,
Good for you.
stand back and trust her. And it was hard
Mhm.
because, you're Nana and your children are expecting you to make
Right. Not
And
for
I-
any broken bones. So
oh no, oh my goodness. And so it was hard,
yeah.
and it's hard to take a shape sorter and give it to them and then not show them how to do it. It's
Mhm.
hard, but you have to recognize that the learning happens when they do it themselves, not when you demonstrate or model for them. So it is, you teach all this stuff for 50 years, and then when even I have a hard time applying it. At times I have to fight myself, right? So
Yeah.
I want no one is going to be perfect at this, no
That's
matter
true.
how many years or how much you believe in it.
Absolutely.
But it's really important that you reflect that, oh, this is my stuff, not their stuff.
Mhm. For
And
sure.
I need to.
And just the freedom, and this is another thing probably that you and I talk about with our students, is the freedom to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
Is a part of the whole play process,
Yeah.
because that's where you can make mistakes safely, and that's where you can do things a little bit differently and those kind of things. So
And that's
it's
how you learn, right? You
yeah,
learn through
exactly.
experience. You don't learn when someone says, that was a bad thing to do. You're like, what? I'm
Yeah,
not bad,
for sure.
right? And so kids need to learn through those experiences. Students need to learn through those experiences. And I'd rather the children learn that risk taking when they're younger than
Mhm.
that risk taking when they're older, when there might be some really long-term consequences.
Right. And we want to just like we want to put advocacy tools in the belt of our students, we want to put decision-making tools in the lives of children so that they understand risk and they understand where they can go with it and why and those kind of things. I mean, at 15 months, they're not going to get that completely, but if we build a foundation at 15 months, then as they grow older, I feel like, and even all the way up to, as you point out, there's some really dangerous things that are going to be in the lives of our students.
Mhm.
And I want them to be able to say, you know what? I don't believe that's for me.
Yeah,
You
right.
decide for you, it's fine, but I'm going to do whatever else. So
Right.
advocacy and standing strong are really two sides of the same coin, I
They
think.
are. And it builds that resilience too. If
Absolutely.
they feel accomplished and successful, or if they have failure, then they say, well, what else could I do to make it,
Yeah.
to do it differently next time, instead of, oh, I just am not good at that. And I
Mhm.
hear that. I hear that so many times with
Yeah.
children in a classroom. I can't do that. And
Draw a horse for me,
yeah,
that kind of mentality.
right, yeah. And they didn't learn that. They didn't come out of the womb like that, right?
Yeah.
But we create those barriers to children being able to develop in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And so what other things are you doing in the classroom with your students that are
Well, I try, and the book that we're using, the text it doesn't preclude play at all. It brings it in a time or two, and we're just about to start because it's an early childhood course, we're going from infancy all the way through second grade. And so I try to, and to me, the class period is not for reliving the text, reliving the chapter. I mean, they do that hopefully on their own. I want us to put some application to it and those kind of things. So one of the things that I do, I have an assignment with every chapter called article review, and they have to find an article on a .com.edu or .gov site that talks about play and the family, play and infants, play and challenges for children, whatever we're talking about, play related information for that. So and then they have to reflect on that, of course. And then they also have to do 16 hours of actual observations.
Oh,
and
nice.
so those have reflection pieces regarding play as well. What did you see, in the infant room? What would you consider play? Because many of our children haven't had any experience with infants or very little, unless they've got nieces and nephews, that kind of thing. So infants and the early toddlers are a little harder for them to connect with, I think, even though they're precious, they have the least experience there. So I really like to talk about that too. What, how did you see, and one of the questions I always have asking is, did you see the teacher encouraging play in any way? Could play have been encouraged in this classroom? Those kind of questions.
In the infant and toddler course that I teach, we use the West Ed, the program for infant and toddler caregivers. And we use those videos that are so helpful in them recognizing the early stages of cognitive development, cause and effect, imitation, use of tools, understanding where children are in space. Each of those, there are 6 of them, but the learning schemes they use, each of those is so helpful in them observing, because they think, oh, they're just laying there chewing on
babies.
Yeah, they're just babies and nothing's really happening. It's a little boring in here, right? Instead of recognizing, oh God, look what they're doing. And this is the learning schemes they're using. And here's where they're getting object permanence. And here's, oh, they're exploring cause and effect, or, oh, look how they're imitating what the teacher's doing when she's singing the Little Bunny Foo-Foo song, or the Wheels on the Bus song, whatever it is. And so it begins to help them recognize that child-initiated play has meaning and relevance to development. And so that is another sort of aha moment for some of them who thought, I didn't think they played when they were,
6 weeks, 2 months old, whatever. Yeah.
Yes, they do. And they do that because it's that internal drive of exploring their environment. So yes, all those really important pieces, and observing children and knowing and being able to describe what you see in an objective way is also so important. Those of you, I would strongly encourage you to look up Heather Burnt Sante's work on schema.
Yes, I just sent all my notes from Heather's IPA session to my students for their portfolio.
Oh my goodness. What an amazing way. Heather just did a Porch Play Chat on Monday on instead of it being misbehavior, what schemas are taking place and how we need to refocus and reframe what children are doing. Because again, I think it's because we look at it through the adult's lens versus looking at it through the child's lens. And so that, I always tell my students, every form of behavior is a form of communication. So you have to be figuring out what it is they're trying to tell you, not what they did, right? So we can worry about that in a minute, but let's figure this out first.
Yeah. A friend of mine uses the phrase that I just love and have stolen from her. Behavior is information, not irritation.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that good? Yeah.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Yeah. It's if we look at it that way and not as what misbehavior is happening, but what does that child need? What do they need in order to be successful right now?
All right.
Regardless of how wild the behavior's getting.
Behavior is information, not what?
Irritation.
Oh my God, I love that. I'm stealing that. Tell me who said that so I can give her credit. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Sharon, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming
course.
on, and we'll have to do another one so that we can
Absolutely.
and we need to share stuff back and forth. I will
I would
send
love it.
you the play activities that I do in the child development class
great.
and the questions for the pre and post survey that they fill out.
That'd be awesome.
But stay right there while I close this out. So hold on
Okay.
just a second.
All right.
So to
Thank you
learn
so
more-
much for having me.
Oh, I'm thrilled that you were here. So
Yeah, thank you.
to learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.